Okay, Hare Krishna, welcome. So today we are going to conclude the third chapter and we are going to start with sloka 3.39 going all the way until 3.43. So I'll play the slokas now.
ज्ञानमेतेन ज्ञानिनो नित्यवैरिणा कामरूपेण कौन्तेय दुष्पूरेणानलेन च इन्द्रियाणि मनोबुद्धिर्नस्याधिष्ठानमुच्यते एतैर्विमोहयत्येष ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनम् तस्मात् त्वमिन्द्रियाण्यादौ नियम्य भरतर्षभ पाप्मानं प्रजहिह्येनं ज्ञानविज्ञाननाशनम् इन्द्रियाणि पराण्याहुरिन्द्रियेभ्यः परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिर्यो बुद्धेः परतस्तु सः एवं बुद्धेः परं बुद्ध्वा संस्तभ्यात्मानमात्मना जहि शत्रुं महाबाहो कामरूपं दुरासदम् ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे कर्मयोगो नाम तृतीयोऽध्यायः।
So as you can see, that sloka beautifully concluded the third chapter. So by this point in the third chapter, Krishna is not just talking about outer action, duty, discipline. He has already spoken about all of that. Now he is talking to Krishna about the hidden mechanism of bondage itself. Does anybody remember what was the question that Arjuna asked in the previous set of slokas? Arjuna had a very honest, very sincere question. Okay. Tomeji, you remember?
Yeah, the question Arjuna asked was, even if I know what's the right thing to do, but still I end up doing something else.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Very happy. You are right. So Arjuna asked, even though I know what I'm supposed to do, what is the right thing to do, what makes me do that which is not right? No, as though I am being forced to do it. That's not a small question. It's one of the deepest questions of human life because all of us know what it means, how it feels when we end up doing something that we were not supposed to do. This is when we catch ourselves. It's so embarrassing when we find ourselves saying things like, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I said that. What do you mean you don't know? You know. No? But somehow you still end up doing that which you are not supposed to do or saying that you're not supposed to do. So Krishna, he's not taking this question casually. He has started answering it very technically in a lot of depth. And then he named the force. So Arjuna said, as if by some force. So Krishna says that some force is kama. And then he showed how it covers wisdom, how it clouds our judgment, and so on and so forth. So again, these final verses of chapter 3 is not abstract philosophy. They are like a field guide for the battles that we face in our lives. See, otherwise what happens if I have to, sometimes I try to be a little like poetic and all, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Without these final slokas, we would be warned but not armed. It is like telling somebody, hey, there is enemy standing there, he's going to hit you. Okay, you have warned him, but are you arming him? Are you helping him defend and face that enemy? And Krishna is doing both, because he previously warned Arjuna and then he goes on to arm him. That is our Krishna. His teaching is always complete. So very practical teachings Krishna is giving Arjuna. He's not just saying there is an enemy. He's also saying, who is that enemy? And then he goes on to show, where does that enemy live? How does the enemy move? What is the enemy covering? What is the enemy destroying? So how can you confront that enemy? How can you overcome that enemy? So this is a wonderful kind of set of practical guidance Krishna goes on to give Arjuna. The compassionate thing here is Krishna doesn't say, he never says that these kind of problems belong only to weak people or it belongs only to, material people. He actually says that, Arjuna, this enemy is an enemy even of the wise people. This enemy is an enemy even of those who are on the spiritual path, those who are elevated. This enemy is an enemy for all of them. So it's a very compassionate thing. So because all of us know that we face the same battle, but we shouldn't end up feeling that because we are facing so much struggles, somehow we are inferior. Krishna says, it's not like that. You are not inferior. The enemy is very powerful, extremely powerful. Because otherwise what happens many times, especially people who are trying to be spiritual, people who are trying to be good, you will hear them. I'm saying them in third sense because it's more convenient, more comfortable. But to be brutally honest, some of us have said this, some of us have felt like this. You don't have to acknowledge openly, but you can acknowledge to yourself. Have you not said sometimes that, hey, I have tried so much, I have worked so hard, I have done all the right things, I have tried, I have this, but still I end up having wrong thoughts, I end up having, disturbances, I end up doing things that I'm not supposed to do, I end up eating things I'm not supposed to eat, I end up drinking things I'm not supposed to drink. Have we not all felt like that somewhere, sometimes? So what Krishna is saying is, we need to overcome it for sure, but not through guilt. Because just guilt alone is not going to help us overcome. Krishna says you need clarity. Clarity of thought is what is important here. And then he says that the problem is not that it's like walking through a dark forest. And we keep stumbling, we keep falling. There are sometimes thorns that prick us, sometimes there are animals that attack us. And we are wondering, why am I not equipped to navigate this forest? And Krishna says, you are equipped. Krishna says, you have a very powerful lantern with you. That is always with you. The problem is not that. The problem is, anybody, any guesses? What is the problem?
Yeah, the lantern is covered with the ignorance.
Yes,
That is like,
yes, yes, exactly. That is Krishna's message. Krishna says that the enemy is very powerful, but at the same time, to overcome the enemy, what you need is also with you. The problem is not whether you have the light, the problem is it is covered. And then Arjuna wanted to know what is it covered with and all, and Krishna said it is covered by lust. Kama is the one big enemy that covers everything. And then of course the question arises, okay, you keep talking about kama, okay. You keep saying it's the enemy. So where is that enemy? Where is that enemy and how is the enemy getting into me? We want to know that, right? And Krishna very beautifully says that the senses, he says, Arjuna, the senses are the doorways through which the enemy enters. So let us now see what the shlokas are here. We start with 3.39, and in 3.39 Krishna starts and he provides a very striking image. He's saying, Avrutam jnanam etena. Knowledge is covered by this. Jnanino nitya vairina. Covered by what? By this constant enemy. And it's not the enemy just of the weak, it's also the enemy of the wise. Kama rupena konteya. In the form of desires, O son of Kunti. Dushpurena analena che. He says, insatiable, like a fire that can never be fulfilled. See, notice the care with which Krishna is speaking here. He does not say that desire destroys knowledge. Is that what he's saying? He doesn't say desire destroys your knowledge. He says it covers your knowledge. What does it mean? That means the knowledge is already there. The knowledge is always there. That's in a way comforting. The self is already luminous. The self is already always full of light. All that happens is a covering. Comes over a thick covering. So once we understand this and once we internalize this, then our entire approach to spiritual life will change. Why will it change? Because the approach is now no longer about gaining wisdom. Rather, the approach becomes uncovering the wisdom. So this is another perspective of Vedanta when they say Aham Brahmasmi. What they mean is the divinity is already in us. All the knowledge is already in us. Now, it's a very profound teaching in Vedanta which says that inherently we know everything. So when we read a book or when we listen to an acharya or when we do satsang, everything we do, it is not to learn something new, but it is to uncover a part of us which already knows that. See how profound the teaching is. See, that is why they say that when people get a glimpse, when they are touched by self-realization, even instantaneously when they are touched, that's it. They get all the gyan, they become jnanis. There are examples, it's not just a fancy statement. Like many times I have mentioned Anandamayi Ma, for example. She's one of my favorites. Because she never had any formal education. No education. And we are talking about olden days. And she in fact got married off when she was very young. Village woman, married off when she was young, no education. But she could speak Vedanta. How that happened? Her bhakti, her devotion, that helped uncover all that was covering her wisdom. Just like that Mirabai did not really have a formal education, but if you listen to her songs, they are deeply philosophical, many of them. They are dripping in Vedanta and you will wonder, how did she know all those things? So this is a very powerful message for all of us. And the image of fire that Krishna is using is also very precise. Why? Because fire can never be fulfilled by feeding it. We all know that. We have studied that earlier. And Krishna is using that example because that is the nature of ego-based desires. The ego-based desire which says, I will be happy if I get whatever. You give that person that thing, do you think they are becoming happy? Look at our own lives, na? When we were a child, that's why I really miss my own kids' childhood, because when they were very small, very tiny, I could get like a 1 rupee lollipop and they will be happy, man. How hard is it to make them happy today? So the point is, we all have grown up. There are so many desires we have had, and we thought we will be happy once that is fulfilled. But the moment you get it, like first you think, I'll be very happy if I get a bicycle. But are you really happy? Yeah, you're happy for a day, 2 days, a week, and then eventually you want a motorbike or a scooter. You enjoy it for some time and then you want a car. And then you want a bigger car, you want a SUV, you want a Mercedes. It's always something, it's always something, it's always something. And that is the problem. That is why Krishna uses fire as an excellent example to say how these ego-based desires are. Does it mean that Krishna is saying any kind of desire and longing is bad? How many of you think that's what Krishna is saying? Okay, very nice. I think everybody already is understanding Krishna now. That's not what Krishna is saying. Krishna is specifically talking about ego-based desires. But the desire to achieve the grace of Bhagavan, or the desire to become a devotee, or the desire to serve either Guru or God or whatever, these are all good desires. So desire in itself is not wrong. It is desire for what? Desire arising from where? That's what we have to be mindful of. That is Krishna's very, very powerful lesson here. The scripture is also explaining this. Please take down this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is 9.19.14. This is that very famous sloka that says that fire can never be fulfilled by throwing ghee at it. So you can read it yourself and introspect on that. That is why indulgence does not cure craving. Very powerful. Instead, indulgence strengthens it. So some people will say, okay, I will have one last party, I will have one last drink, I will have one last smoke, or one anything. They think, they are so longing for something that if they have it, they will feel satisfied and then they will be done. But ask any alcoholic, ask any smoker, ask anybody who has tried to quit something this way, if they have really been successful quitting like that. Because that one drink, the moment you have, now you will want the second. Then now the desire the next day is going to be even stronger. That is the mechanism Krishna is helping us understand. But what happens because of all this illusion and covering, what we think, what is the biggest folly we get into? We think repetition is progress. Repetition means, I wanted something, I got it, but I was not happy, but I'm not really, considering that. But because I was not happy, I wanted the second thing, and you went and got it. You are not happy, but you are not acknowledging that. You want a third thing, you went and got it. But all you are looking at it is, I got one thing, I got two things, I got three things, and somehow I am doing well. Somehow I am progressing. But Krishna is saying, my dear, are you looking that you are not happy with one thing? You are not happy with the second thing? You are not happy with the third thing either? Are you not paying attention to that? So what you should be actually considering as a failure, you start considering as a success. And that is the whole game of this ego-based desires, because it makes even failure looks like success. And that's why some people, they are running all their lives and they are never happy. So please take down this Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4.4.5. It's a very precise sloka. I will just simplify it for you, then you can read it yourself and get the complete understanding. It says that human being is essentially, it's such a powerful statement. That Upanishad, that sloka is saying, human beings are essentially kamamaya. That means we are made of desire. Whatever our desire is, that becomes our will. Whatever our will is, becomes our action. And whatever our action is, that's what we become. Very precise, very methodical, very categorical. So you should read that and introspect on that. Now comes the science. Krishna is now talking as the great metaphysicist, spiritual scientist. Now he's saying that you need to understand that this karma is energy. How many of you agree that karma is energy? Okay. Somebody has doubts? Anybody thinks? Everybody agrees, right? Karma is energy. And what was the fundamental law of physics we spoke earlier concerning energy? Who remembers? Okay, Deepaji, what do you remember?
Energy just increases. You need to channelize it.
Okay. Is there a more technical? Last time I think Ekansh answered it. Okay, Someji.
Energy can never be created nor be destroyed. It can only transform from one form to another.
Excellent. This feels like a science class, right? It is. It is a spiritual science, and that's what Krishna is teaching now. So Krishna is saying, my friend, that kama, that lust is energy. So can you destroy it? Of course not, because we have all studied science and we know that energy cannot be destroyed. But we also learned that it can be converted from one form to another. That's exactly what Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying that that energy can be transformed. So what you think is a weakness can become a strength. All you have to do is change the direction. See, it is like, in these days it's uncommon. A lot of people don't even know what a sail is. But yeah, if you see some older movies or if you read some older books, you will read about this whole science of how people would use wind. They will just harness the power of the wind. See, what happens? The wind is blowing and you think it is your enemy because the wind is pushing you here and there, and so you're not able to go where you want to go. But some wise person came and said, but you can turn it to an advantage. All you have to do is set your sail in such a way that the wind will push the sail wherever you want to go. The same thing Krishna is talking about here. So the problem is not karma itself. Listen carefully. So the problem is not lust itself, because it is just energy. And energy in itself is neither good nor bad. It's neither divine nor evil. What is the problem? The problem is our compulsion. Because when we give into compulsion, we use that energy to drag ourselves down. See, that's the science. However, if we realize, if we use our intellect the right way, and if we are able to now change the direction, just change the direction. That same energy will help you elevate. So this is what, in a way, this is what is the whole fancy. Nowadays, everybody uses it in a fancy way, Kundalini. But this is pretty much that. When the energy, when you learn how to change the direction of energy from down to up, the energy will do the job for you. So in a yogic language, I don't know, some of you are practicing yoga and all. Maybe Deepa knows this. They call this virya. Have you heard this, Deepa ji? Okay. So in yogic language, that energy is called virya. Virya is very powerful energy, extremely powerful energy. And what is that? Where did that virya come from? It didn't come from anywhere. It was lust. It used to be called as kama. And this wise person, the person who was practicing yoga, figured out how to now change the direction of that energy in such a way that now it helps them instead of troubles them. And once it starts helping them, that is virya. The young people especially, you have to pay attention here, because if we give into compulsion, what happens is this energy gets wasted. It is like throwing water, filtered water. You have this fancy UV filtering and all of that. You have a jug full of filtered water and you're just throwing it in the gutter. That is pretty much what happens when we give into compulsions. That energy gets all dissipated, wasted. But the same energy. So, okay, I'll first tell you what happens. And you can look at a person and you can tell this is what is going on. Or you can look at yourself and tell that is what is going on. There are some days when you will feel exhausted for no reason. Or there are days when your mind will feel very fickle. Or there are days when you will be very easy to irritate. You will become very irritable. Or you will become incapable of making decisions. You are not, I'm not sure. You will just in general feel lack of confidence. You will feel weak. That is a symptom of somebody who has been wasting that energy. Because you have only Energy, as we said, energy is energy. Nobody gets like 5-6 cylinders of energy in them. It is yes, Chitraji, you had a question.
Yes, Guruji, Hare Krishna. So, some form of compulsion or any kind of like friction, isn't that the same as either it's in the mode of attachment or aversion in some way?
Yes, correct. Attachment is what is compulsion we are talking here. So when that attachment becomes strong and when you are not able to use your viveka to detach, then you keep running. I want a car, I want this, I want that. That is one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is habits, especially men, they know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you give into bad habits that drains you so quickly, like, that takes away your prana. Shortcut to feeling exhausted, shortcut to feeling weak, shortcut to feeling, is you waste your energy, especially your, sex energy. When you waste it, that is when you see men who are not able to behave like men at all. No virya. That is why it is called, we use the word shurveer. That shurveer, veer comes from virya. Because people, if you don't have virya, you cannot be a veer. It's very simple, very, very fundamental science. There's not much to think about. And on the other side, like compulsion, it's not just that. Like there are some people who know they have allergies, for example. But their mind is not strong. Their mind is not strong because they are already been wasting their energy. Now, because their mind is not strong, they give in to a compulsion and they will go and eat or drink that which they are not supposed to. Now, that is a loop. That's going to make them more sick. That's going to make them more weak. And that compulsion is only dragging them more and more down because now they have lesser energy, they have lesser willpower. And the next time they give in to compulsions more easily. See, this is how addictions work. This is the science of addiction. Every addict was at one point sober. Nobody is born an addict, right? So at some point, everybody was sober. And from sober, how did they land up becoming an addict? One addiction at a time. One compulsion at a time. One weakness at a time. And before you know, you are no longer in control. That is pranashyati we spoke about. Yes, Tomeji, you had a question?
Yeah, Guruji, so there is a very famous story that is told to us, and I'm sure everybody would have listened to it. And I'm just trying to put things in perspective, which is when Shiva opened his third eye to burn the Kamadeva. So is the literal meaning of that story is that Shiva, because he was so aware and aware about his own, like he was consciously aware about things, so he burnt down the compulsion that came out of Kamadeva, and he re-channelized and he re-tapped on that energy when Shiva and Parvati, like when consciousness and energy had to merge for the greater good, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Very
so,
nice, very nice. So, these stories, they are all interpreted in many different ways by many different people. But what you say, the gist is absolutely correct. So Shiva opening the third eye is very similar to saying your awareness, you are fully aware, you are fully conscious, you are fully mindful. Very true. And so we just spoke about what all happens when you waste that energy. It's a cycle. The positive cycle is also true. When you learn to conserve the energy, you just have to redirect one compulsion. Like let us say somebody is very fond of, one bad habit. And when you have one compulsion, when you're very strong, right? Just redirect it. For example, this is something that we tell young boys especially. Young boys, they feel very restless. They are about to give in to some compulsion, something bad, something negative. We tell them, why don't you go take a run? Or why don't you try to do some extra gym? Or why don't you go for a hike? So what we are telling them is, this energy that you are having, it is good. You are feeling that strong urge. You are feeling that compulsion to do something. That is good. That means that energy is there in you. Now just redirect it. And the same energy which was going to bring you down, will make you stronger, and you do it one day, the next day, you'll find it easier. And before you realize, that becomes a habit. See, I'll tell you something very simple, because I'm not a Bruce Lee or a Mike Tyson or anything. I'm a very simple guy, but I try at least to, go and say hi to the people in the gym once in a while. But the one good thing is I always go at a specific time of the day. Like I go early in the morning. And I can tell you, I have seen miraculous transformations in people. Like people in front of my eyes, I have seen how they have transformed. It's amazing. But do you know who transforms? It is not the person who is sweating the most in the gym. It is the person who is showing up every day. And you can ask anybody, it's not my gyan. This has been observed and documented by many fitness gurus. And I have seen it for decades. I have been seeing it. Like, a person who looks very unfit, a person who looks like, they don't belong in the gym. They just keep showing up, and one fine day, they are the star of the gym. So all I'm saying is, this positive cycle is also possible. All you have to do is wake up one day. Then the next day it becomes a little easier. And before you realize, it becomes a habit. So what other observation I make is, the early morning, the people who come, mostly they are the same people. They are the same people who will always be there in the morning. It's habit. I'm not saying that those people somehow are gifted. They are just people who used the energy the right way. They tried it for a few days and it became a habit, and then it became easy for them. So that is the whole thing I'm talking about here. That you can also keep building more confidence, more strength, more willpower. All you have to do is start with one redirection and then repeat. And soon it will become effortless. And if there are again various paths, various people talk about it in different ways. If you ask a yogi, the yogi will call whatever we spoke about now, direction and all of that, that is what the yogis call as transmutation. They will talk about transmutation of energy. That is the yogic principle. And what does the bhakta call it? The devotee? This is what they call as surrender and offering. This may sound counterintuitive, but a weak person cannot surrender. True surrender can only happen when you are strong. True surrender takes strength. Because if you look at the science of it, if you find it extremely hard to even respect somebody, if you find it extremely hard to bow down, what does it mean? It means your ego is in control. In other words, you are a slave to your ego. Is that strength? How can a slave be strong? You can completely surrender only when ego is not ruling you. You are in control of your ego. But that takes strength. That is why we say that true surrender is an act of strength. It is not an act of weakness. And so, the yogi calls it transmutation, the bhakta calls it surrender. But both of them, they are talking about the same thing. They are talking about, they have figured out how to change the direction of their energy in the right direction. So if they change it in the right direction, the yogi becomes a Mahayogi and the bhakta becomes a surrendered devotee. So in 3.40, now Krishna becomes even more precise. He's going to talk about, he spoke about where they try to enter from. Now he's going to tell where they are living. He's saying, Indriyani mano buddhir asya adhishtanam uchyate. The senses, the mind and the intellect, they are the seat of lust. And then he says, Eter vimohayati eshaha. Through this, it deludes us. Jnanam avritya dehinam. How does it delude us? By covering the knowledge of the embodied one. See how categorically technically, Krishna is now talking about the whole science of it now. Adhishtanam is a very beautiful word because it means base, a seat, a stronghold. So Krishna is saying that karma is not some abstract concept. He says karma has a very clear structure on how it operates. And he says that, now please pay attention. Krishna is now saying that this karma takes hold of us through 3 levels. So think of the personality as a fortress. Okay, like the senses, they are like the doors of the fort. The mind is like the inner corridor. Like once you enter the door, you walk through a corridor in a fort, right? To reach any important place. And the buddhi is the inner chamber of the fort. Now what happens if the gate is not guarded? You leave the gate open. Whatever enters, walks through the corridor. And if the corridor is also not guarded, of course, it goes and sits in the inner chamber. Once it sits in the inner chamber, it behaves like it is the king. It behaves like it is now ruling the fort. That is what Krishna is beautifully explaining there. This is why we again, this is why that image of a horse and a chariot and the reins, they're all very important because this is exactly what they're talking about there. So what Krishna is saying is, the problem is not that the energy exists. The problem is not that lust exists. He says the problem is that it is not being governed correctly. So the energy is not a problem. The problem is, are we mindful? Governing basically means, are you mindful? Are you aware? Are you controlling it? Are you directing it correctly? Because if we govern it, that becomes your helper. It starts helping you. If you don't govern it, it starts bringing you down. Simple, correct? Like it is just like electricity. If you don't know how to use electricity, if you're going to just, insert your fingers into the socket, you're going to get shocked and die. But the same electricity you know how to use. You see how many cool things we do with it. So is the problem the electricity? Can you say that the person died because of electricity? It's only partly true. He died because he didn't know how to govern it. He didn't know how to manage it. And Krishna is saying this karma, this lust is also like that. Now, the most important thing that we need to keep in mind is, how does when we say you have to govern, when we say we have to make sure that we are aware and directing it in the right way, what part of us is responsible for that? Like when we say you have to be mindful, you have to use your viveka, discrimination to make sure that, the energy is being properly channeled and all. What part of it? Yes, Simranji?
Mind.
Partly, you have to go a little more specific.
Intellect. Your thoughts.
Yes. Why are you so doubtful? Yes. It's the buddhi, the intellect. The viveka is a function of the intellect. So it is the intellect's job to be aware and mindful and make sure that that energy is going in the right direction. But where is the problem? The game, the Maya plays. Because what happens? Let us say you are not supposed to touch alcohol. Not good for you. But tumhara andar that your ego is very smart. It will say, kuch nahi hota. And nothing happens. It's harmless. Ek se kya hoga? Some people become very cultural also. They will say, oh, it's part of our culture. I'm like, do you know what all are part of your culture, or do you know only this one part of your culture? Be it eating meat or be it alcohol or any of those things, right? But this is all the play of the ego. Now what is the side effect? What is happening because of all of that? When does the game become really advanced level? Is, as Krishna explained earlier, that causes the lust to now conveniently go and cover your intellect. It was your intellect that was supposed to control lust, but now lust has come and covered your intellect. Now are you not hopeless? Because if the intellect itself is covered, that's what we studied in the previous set of slokas. Like a smoke covers fire, like dust covers mirror, like the womb covers the embryo. If you're not careful, and if you let your ego rule, it will allow the lust to go and cover your intellect. And once your intellect is covered, that is where the biggest problem is. That is how buddhi now gets tricked into serving that which should have been serving buddhi. It all may seem a bit very technical, but like it or not, this is happening within us every day. This is not something that happens in some distant place to some other people. So, does it mean there is no hope? Where do you think is the real problem? No, we think that all this goodness, all this spiritual thing is very difficult. Right now somebody is thinking like that. I know. I can sense the energy. But Janjat is very difficult, very hard. Why we think like that? It's not really difficult that way. The problem is not that we have lack of tools within us. The problem is not that we don't have light within us. The problem is we are not having preparation within us. We are not willing to put in the efforts. That is where the efforts are required. The preparation. Because the preparation is what helps us make sure that the dust doesn't get too thick. That is what makes sure that your intellect does not get covered. That's your preparation, the effort that you put in. So, even in yoga, that's what Patanjali says. When Patanjali talks about Ashtanga Yoga, does he start with Samadhi, Deepaji? Is Samadhi the first part of yoga? Are you saying yes?
No. We start with we calm ourselves. We start with the breathing exercise. So it's not samadhi. Samadhi is the last part of it.
Thank you. So even the yogis, Ashtanga Yoga, they start with Yama and Niyama. Before you go. But in today's world, we have corrupted yoga so thoroughly that people will just immediately, on day one, they will talk about hot yoga and beach yoga, God knows what. But the real yoga, Patanjali himself has said that it has to start with Yama Niyama. Until you master Yama Niyama, please don't go to the other parts. That is preparation. So that is why Bhakti is also a yoga. It is Bhakti Yoga. There also you need preparation. Just because you are saying I surrender, it's not that, okay, I will do nothing, I will take popcorn, lie down on my couch and say, Krishna, I have surrendered. As I said, that surrender has to be from a position of strength and clarity. The preparation. So very quickly, Yama, there are 5 Yamas. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya and Aparigraha. You can read all of this. And then the Niyama is Shaucha, Santosha, Tapas, Svadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana. The point is, if this is missing, if the foundation is missing, this is the example. This is what happens when you see a lot of spiritually minded people. They will go on collecting information. More books, more audio, more video. But they don't really get evolved, because what happens? It stays in the collection phase only. It never becomes transformation. In fact, in olden days, in the Gurukula system, the Guru used to say, take one mantra. And they will say, stick to it. They will say, practice it. Or take just one philosophy, take just one something. So that preparation is extremely important. And then we quickly talk about Jnana and Vijnana. They are not the same. Krishna will say that this enemy destroys both Jnana and Vijnana. Anybody already knows the difference between Jnana and Vijnana? We studied it in the previous batch, of course. So it is slightly out of syllabus for those who are newly learning Bhagavad Gita. I'll keep it very short. Jnana is knowledge. Vijnana is when that knowledge becomes realization. So Vijnana is the practical. That is why what karma does is karma makes sure that the jnana never becomes vijnana. It sits in the middle, in that gap. It doesn't let the transition happen. And again, as I said, this is the symptom of such a person who is having karma there is they are running behind. They're treating even spirituality like a material pursuit. How many videos they have, how many audios they have, how many ebooks they have. People will fashionably say, I have all the Vedas, all the Upanishads at my home. But there is no point, because the transition has to happen. That is one of the reasons why a guru matters so much. The guru's job is not just to give information. The guru's job is not just giving you jnana. The guru's job is to actually see where a particular student is suffering from, which layer is being problematic. And they are supposed to help clear that layer. We studied in the previous session, the guru is supposed to pay attention. The guru is supposed to know, is it smoke covering fire for this person? Or is it dust covering mirror for this person? Or is it the womb covering the embryo for the person? And accordingly, they have to deal with them in a different way. They have to engage with them differently. And then the knowledge will actually become vijnana for that person. That is one of the main jobs of a guru. And how they do it is up to every guru. But the intent is always the same. You can just take down, we have studied this earlier also in 2.49, Bhagavad Gita 2.49, where Krishna already said that Buddho Sharanam Anvicha, which means he says, take refuge in Buddhi. Because without the shelter of a discriminating intellect, the senses will always rule and they will always scatter and waste all your energies, and you will never be able to make progress. So take refuge in Buddhi. That is the first part. We studied that in second chapter 2.49. And here what has Krishna said? Make sure that you are protecting that Buddhi. Take refuge in Buddhi and make sure you protect that Buddhi from getting covered by lust. So you have to do both. So between 2.49 and 3.41, Krishna has given a complete picture. And if you look at 3.42, he is giving Arjuna one of the great inner maps of Vedanta, where he says first, Indriyani parani ahuha. The senses are said to be higher than the gross body. And then he says, Indriyebhya param manaha. Higher than the senses is the mind. Manasastu para buddhi. Higher than the mind is the intellect. Yaha buddheha paratastu saha. He says, and then the self is higher even than the intellect. So very beautifully he has given the hierarchy there. And there is an Upanishad called Taittiriya Upanishad. And there is an entire section in that Upanishad that talks about this hierarchy. But why I am pointing that out is, it's very funny that what that Upanishad took one entire section to explain, Krishna is here explained in one shloka. Master stroke, that is. So please read 3.42 again by yourself. Try to understand, try to internalize what it says. And also the Upanishad I spoke about. There are two Upanishads, but maybe I'll give you one of them. Katha Upanishad. So in Katha Upanishad, just take down 1.3.10 and 1.3.11. And there it talks about this whole hierarchy. So you can read it yourself. The one thing I want to say is, in that Upanishad, in that shloka, they keep using the word para. For example, they will say, para hyartha, param manaha, para buddhir. Like that. They will use para many times in that verse. So you have to pay attention to. So I'm giving you some tips on how to read the shloka and what part of it you have to focus more on. So when you read the shloka, focus on the word para and why they have used it so many times. And usually a simple translation, para means higher. Paramatma, that is Paramatma. So like that, para is higher. And Shankaracharya in his commentary, he says 3 specific meanings that the word carries. So of course, I'm just quoting what the great Shankaracharya has said. He has said that para means sukshma. Sukshma means subtle. And he says para means something that possesses greater range and power. And he says it also means pratyagatma bhuta, which is also very beautiful. He says, which means it is nearer to your higher self, nearer to your true self. Some of you may find some of it boring and all, but you like it or not, this is we are talking about the mechanism that is inside you. We are talking about the mechanism that is inside each one of us. We are so proud of saying that, I know this language, I know this software, I know this, but isn't it most important to know ourselves? And Krishna is here spending all these slokas technically to explain how our own mechanism works. So the last part that Shankaracharya says is this para also means. So what are the 3 things? Para, sukshma, subtle. Second, more powerful. And third, closer to the higher self. So when he says, for example, when we say that the mind is higher than the senses, that means the mind is subtler, the mind is more powerful, and the mind is closer to your higher self. And like that, the more closer you get, the more subtle it gets, and the more power it has. In a way, it is a very encouraging teaching, because senses are at the outskirts. The senses are the external, right? Comparatively. So in other words, your mind is inherently more powerful than the senses. All you have to do is not give in to those compulsions, and your intellect is more powerful than your mind, because your intellect is more subtle. So the mechanism is all in your favor only. The only problem is we let that ego take control, and that ego will turn the whole game against us. That is why Krishna keeps saying, no pride, humility, because that is a fundamental enemy here. So why does this hierarchy we spoke about, why does it matter in the battle against karma? Because without it, we will be fighting the wrong battle in the wrong place. Because we need to know where the enemy is, correct? And we need to know exactly how it works, and then we can go fight it. Yes, Smitaji?
Para is the other, and Parama is the higher. So both are right. Only difference is Para is other, somebody else, and Parama is the higher. Sorry, but that is what I wanted to say. So both are right.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, the only confusion is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the shloka we spoke about 1.3.10, the word used is para. So this is para hyarta, and then they will say para buddhir. So that is the confusion. They will say para gatihi. So param also is used, but para is also used. So we need to do a little bit of deep dive into that Sanskrit part. Right? I'll also do a little research there. Thank you for that insight. So the hierarchy and all we discussed, it's all very important, because this is how we will know exactly where the enemy is getting in from, how the enemy is working. Right now also the enemy is working. It's very active. I'm not taunting anybody. I'm not judging anybody. But see, even this knowledge, people are finding it like, it's not very interesting. The ego doesn't let us realize this is the most important lesson for us. Because this lesson is what helps us understand how the mechanism works within us. If you don't even know that, how will we ever overcome it in the true sense? Otherwise, it's just delusion, thinking that we are progressing, or no, we are not. So let me just quickly talk about the symptom. Krishna is making us understand that there is one very real confusion that goes on in our minds, that we believe somehow that whatever we feel the most strongly has to be true. This is a very common misconception that all of us have. Whatever I feel very strongly has to be right, has to be true. And the Bhagavad Gita, through the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will very gently disagree, and he will say that intensity is not the test of truth. This is a very eye-opening lesson for a lot of us. The question is not how strongly I feel. The real question should be, from which layer is that feeling coming from? This is such a profound teaching. You will not find such teachings in any other scripture. It's such a in-depth analysis. So Krishna says, just because you feel strongly doesn't necessarily mean that that is right, because don't look at just the intensity of your feeling, look at where is that feeling coming from. Is it coming from just lust? Is it coming from your senses? Is it coming from your ahankara? Is it coming from your mind? Is it coming from your intellect? Or is it really coming from your higher self? Very important. It will take a lot of practice, but at least we have to accept that this is confidential knowledge that Krishna is passing on to us. Because what happens? We keep always mistaking loudness for depth. It is like that fish market. The person who is loudest usually ends up making the sale. But just because it is loudest, does it mean it is the most correct, or does it mean it is the deepest? That is the million-dollar question that we have to ask ourselves. And how will we know the difference? Again, viveka, discernment, discrimination. So you have to see how categorically Krishna has pointed out that craving is the root of suffering. The same thing is called out by Buddha also. You can take down 4 noble truths. These are all small, quick reads. Just called 4 noble truths. And this is by Buddha. It will be a quick read if you go and research it yourself. There, Buddha will say that the first truth is dukkha, which is the fundamental feeling of dissatisfaction that we all have. The second is tanha. Tanha is that craving. He says that is the origin of that dukkha. And of course, the third truth, he says, it is possible to get over it. And then the fourth is the way, the method, the disciplined path that will help us overcome it. So you can do the research. And so what I want to say is the similarity is not coincidental, because truth is truth. And what Krishna has told us, the same thing Buddha realized 3000 years later to be the truth. And he has said the same thing. One thing that we need to overcome, it's not just, again, it goes back to the question. So we spoke about we need discernment, we need viveka, we need to put in our efforts. But do you think you can win this battle using just your own effort? No. Okay. What do you think we need in order to really win, if not your own efforts? Lakshmi ji wants to say something.
God's grace has to be.
Grace. Thank you. That grace is required. Okay, now next question. How do you achieve that grace? What is the mechanism? What is the easiest mechanism? Yes, Chitra ji.
By surrendering our ego, our pride.
Okay,
That's
okay, but
so
that still needs preparation. Yes, Deepa ji.
By chanting the holy name consistently.
Okay, that's also fine. Is there an easier way to kickstart that grace? Yes, Simran ji.
To open up and being receptive to the grace, being mindful, observing.
Okay, very nice. There's still one miss. You open up, but where? Do you open up in a pub? Do you open up in a football field? Yes, yes, Sulata ji.
Humility and being in association, like with satsanga, and trying to internalize it. Ego and pride.
Yes, finally, we came to the. That's one of the key benefits of a satsanga. You know, that's where you know, the grace works that way. You have to be in close contact. It's like electricity needs wire. Even if you say wireless electricity, you still need a magnet where you can keep your phone to charge. No, there is always a medium that is required. That is why here I give so much importance week over week to sit with you all. You know, it's a big commitment for me also. But I sit with you all because this is the mechanism. You look at each other, you knowingly or unknowingly, you are soaking in each other's positive energy, you know, the collective consciousness. The magic is there. Because otherwise, you really don't need me. You really don't need me. There are so many acharyas who have come before me. There are like thousands of videos and books, and you know, so Bhagavad Gita, you don't need me to learn. What I'm helping you do is get that grace. That is the main goal. That's the main thing I'm trying to do, and I've been, you know, and then the magic will happen. Because without that, you know, as we said, the intellect itself gets covered. And so what chance do you have of real success? You know, many times we don't even know the game is rigged already. That is why it all boils down to this satsanga, a guru, a teacher, a mentor, whatever, and how you approach humility. They are the real. What I teach, my notes, it's really not that important, because I'm pretty much a parrot. I'm repeating what Krishna said, and many people have done a much better job than me. You know, but my real value add here is bringing you all together in one place at one time, and somehow trying to make you all actively participate. अरे वो कुकर ना कुछ नहीं होगा, कुकर वो खाना बन जाएगा, वो you know, कपड़े सूख जाएंगे, वो सब हो जाएगा, you know. But ये जो है ना, ये इसको तुम इतना don't give it such low status. This is what is most important in our lives. Satsanga, that's why very, very important. No matter which saint you listen to, no matter which path you choose, it will all come down to grace, one way or the other. Even yoga, even Ashtanga yoga, they will say you need a guru at some point. You know, they will, you know, that grace is very, very important. And then we come to the final shloka, 3.43, that brings the whole chapter to its point of rest, where Krishna says, Evam buddheha param buddhva, having thus known that which is higher even than the intellect. And then he says, steadying the self by the self, Jahi Satrum Mahabaho, slay this enemy, O mighty armed one, Kama Rupam Durasadam. He says, this enemy in the form of desire, so very hard to conquer. See, this enemy is hard for even Mahabaho, even that great Arjuna to conquer. Who are we talking about? We are talking about a guy who can look in the water and shoot the eye of a moving fish. You know, a guy who can defeat an entire army. We are talking about a guy with such strength. A guy who has studied the Vedas. You know, the guy who is good in so many arts. A guy who is so elevated that Krishna is willing to become his Sarathi. We are talking about that kind of a person who is struggling, and somehow you think that you are beyond all of this. Somehow you think, mera ho jayega, I will do it tomorrow, I will do it day after tomorrow, I will do it when I am 50. This is the problem. This is where our ahankara comes and, you know, does not let us internalize. So Here Krishna is giving a very powerful close to the chapter. Because Krishna is saying you don't need either guilt, nor should you give in to superficial optimism. Somehow, like, I'm special, I'm a snowflake. Nobody is special. Everybody is participating in the same cosmic law, in the same universal law. Okay? So he's telling Arjuna very clearly that victory is possible. And the beautiful message he says, victory is possible because the source of victory is within you. Because your higher self, the karma, is powerless against it. The problem is not whether it exists within you. The problem is whether you are letting it shine. No, you are giving into more and more comfort and you are letting it get covered more and more. And that's the problem. It's very, very beautiful. So please take down this Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad 2.2.8. You please read it yourself. And if you have any doubts or questions, you can always message me or you can message in the group. Then we go to Pragma 5. Pragma 5 says, know that lust is the root cause of all evil. Replace it with divine love for Bhagavan. And that is the trick. The second sentence is very important because we cannot just say lust is evil, so destroy it. You cannot destroy it. We cannot say lust is evil, so just control it. You cannot control it. All you can do is transform it, redirect it. And redirect it in service, in seva, redirect it in love for God. And so we have understood that the biggest enemy is called lust. We have understood that it has to be overcome. But when is the question? If you still think you will do it tomorrow, if you still think you will do it when somehow things are more ideal, I will do it when my kids, clear their college. I will do it when my children get married. I will do it when I retire. I do it when I win the lottery. Then you are missing the whole point. This has to be the biggest urgency for us and we have to tackle it now. All our job, the effort that we have to take is not give the throne to that enemy. Instead, give the throne to who it always belonged to. Who does it always belong to? It belongs to your higher self. And that is the message of this entire set of slokas. With that, we can conclude chapter 3. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.